Hello and welcome to In Business Talk 2. We are excited to welcome you to our bonus episode of the Friday Fix, episode 28. We are your hosts, Tracy and Ian Earle, founders of In Business, a networking and business support community. And together,
we are In Business. Every Friday we'll be discussing a business-related subject with either one of our wonderful In Business networking members or a fellow business owner who'll be sharing their advice, thoughts or knowledge on a particular topic. This week we're speaking to Mark Jarvis of Mark Jarvis Academy for Scaling Businesses. Mark is a specialist in helping people to grow and scale their businesses. He works with owners, partners, managers, leaders and teams so that they can communicate more effectively, internally and externally, focusing on growth and bringing clarity to their vision by helping them to work on the right things with the right people at the right time. He's also a big lover of cake. Man after my own heart. Oh, and make sure you listen to the end of the show to hear Mark tell us his favourite networking tip. I'd like to welcome our guest today. We've got Mark Jarvis from the Mark Jarvis Academy for Scaling Businesses. Welcome, Mark.
Thank you very much, Tracy, and hello, Ian. Thank you so much for inviting me to come along today. It's a pleasure to be here.
Hello, Mark. Thank you very much for coming along. We really appreciate it, don't we? Yeah,
we do.
Good. Thank you. Thank you. So, shall we start by asking you, tell us about your journey. What's your journey what's your journey been like, Mark? How have you got where you are today? What's your story? How's that?
Thank you for that, Ian. In a word, colourful. But like many people, I started my first business in the early 90s, having spent 22 years in the hotel industry. And like many people, you have an idea that you think, you know what, I'd like to go and start my own business for the reasons why many of our listeners are here today as well. In that I wanted a life, we wanted control of our diary. I wanted to decide who I worked with, when I worked with those people. The reality is that you actually don't end up there, but that's perhaps a discussion for later. But on my journey since the early 90s, I've built, I build and I sell businesses, and I've done so ever since, including my own businesses. And that journey has taught me a lot of things. And it's my pleasure to perhaps share some of those with you today.
Excellent. Thank you.
We've heard you speak on a number of occasions, and you've always got such valuable information to share with people. So
lots of useful knowledge, which is always great. Yeah.
So today you're going to talk to us about the difference between growing your business and
expansion.
Yeah.
My
brain went blank.
Yeah, no, it did. So I jumped in.
Because we help our members. We say we help them to connect, learn, and grow. But if they're solo business owners, they might not always want to be taking on millions of staff. So I'll hand over to you. And
So what is the difference between growth and expansion? Is there a difference?
A very good question. And again, on my journey, I've learned that there really is a difference. And in the same as my journey, you start a business and you think, do you know what, I'd love to be successful. I'd love to make some money. I'd love to have control of my diary, all of the sorts of things that we aspire to be and do. Yet on that journey, sometimes we decide that we don't want to have a massive team of people around us. Sometimes we do, but sometimes we don't. And one of the key things that I've learned over the years I've been sort of teaching and mentoring business people and organizations is that we tend to get those two words a little bit mixed up, the term growth and the term expansion. And quite rightly, so many people in business, they would like to just have a life. They'd like to have control of their life and enjoy their life and have the money to be able to do the things that they want to be able to do. Without the necessity to have a big team of people around them, trying to work really hard and manage all of those things. And don't get me wrong, I've done all of those things in the past, and successes and failures along the journey are the same as all of us. But the reality is that, not everybody wants to really actually expand their business. Some people just want to grow their business. Anyway, so what's the difference? Well, for me, expansion is a quantity and turnover driven concept, whereas growth is a quality and relational and profitability driven concept. Okay, so let's just explore that if I can very briefly, and then I'll stop talking for a minute. So let's imagine the business owner's journey. I've started my business. I'd like to grow my business. And so many people will say you need to grow your business, and this is how you can grow your business, and you can do all of these things to grow your business. And the business owner puts their hand up and says, hold on a minute. Do I actually want to grow my business? And what they're actually thinking about is they're thinking about this in terms of expansion. So growth can be expansion.
Yeah.
But expansion doesn't always end up being growth.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah,
Right.
no, sweet.
So is growth then, if I'm understanding right, is growth more to do with almost like a number where you're increasing a percentage of business, or you're doing something like that rather than expanding? Does that make sense? Is it more of a numerically type thing? Then if you're growing something, you're growing it by X% by whatever it might be, as opposed to expanding where you're, I don't know,
Like
is the other
10
word
employees,
scaling
or
up? Does that make sense? Yeah.
Yes, I absolutely understand the question, Ian, and thank you so much for setting me up for the answer.
All right.
It's absolutely fine. And for me, on my journey, Ian, I've learned that that's a very good example of us perhaps getting these two concepts not mixed up, but perhaps the line between the two is blurring for us. So let me just run through a quick example for you. So imagine that you've started your business, and on the journey, let's not call it growth or expansion at this point, but let's just call it a journey. We've started a business, and on the journey, we end up serving more and more customers and clients. Okay?
Yeah.
As we serve more and more customers and clients, we get busier. That's okay. When we reach a point where we cannot be busier, we expand through employment. When we employ, we can serve more and more customers and clients, and our team gets busier.
Yeah.
And then guess what happens? We reset, employ again, and get busy again.
Yeah.
Okay. So this is what I call it the linear expansion model, if you like. If you'd like to download my Jarvis principles, which are 7 principles for business, you can do so from my website. But this is the what I call the linear expansion model, where we serve more and more customers, we get busier, we employ people in response to a demand on our capacity.
Right. Makes sense.
Okay, so we expand through employment. And then effectively we're lurching from one point of busyness to the next. Okay. And today is not the time to explore the concept of employee engagement and all that sort of thing. But can you see how that journey can be what business owners think growth is?
Oh,
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Now, that is not growth, that's expansion.
Yeah.
And it's expansion because the destination is quantity and turnover. So to serve more and more customers, to generate more revenue, I need to employ people to expand capacity in my business to serve more people.
Yeah.
Your bottom line might not necessarily be any greater, might it?
Absolutely. So that, as I say, that's a destination of quantity and turnover. Now, what if the destination were quality and profit? Now, that's a growth journey. Now, to come back to your original point, Ian, growth is a mindset. So growth it happens at each stage when we have one of those, what let's call it a blinding flash of the obvious,
Yeah.
those oh my goodness moments. That's so obvious. Why didn't I do that before? Type of moments.
Yeah.
That blinding flash of the obvious as a business owner, when we just understand that actually the thing that's limiting growth is my learning and development, and my personal learning and development, and how I then think about how I grow my business, because growing a business is an infinite mindset. We all love Simon Sinek, I hope. Most of us love Simon Sinek. Is, we live by this concept of start with why, one of his most famous books. But he's written another book called The Infinite Game. And for all our listeners, I would really recommend that you go and check out Simon Sinek, The Infinite Game, because it talks about this difference between a quantity-driven, finite mindset when the goal is to win, or a finite growth mindset where the philosophy is to grow and to play the game.
Right.
So he likens it, I don't want to steal his story, but he likens it to a game of football. For a lot of people, winning the game is the goal. But for the people that are in business, sometimes playing the game is the best bit. Yeah. So in business, and these, when people are saying things like, I want to be the best in my industry, I want to be known as the best in this, and I want to do this, and all these sorts of things, those destination quantity driven concepts is a finite process, because when you get there, where'd you go? So this infinite process of growth is a mindset thing. So it doesn't matter how big your organization is. It doesn't matter how long you've been trading. It doesn't matter about your turnover, your experience in business. These steps in mindset move us from this finite process to an infinite process, from expansionism to growth. And I've created sort of an 8-step journey in the evolution of a business, which just takes people through those changes in mindset to move to the next steps. Anyway, so I hope that sort of sums it up really for you, and the difference between growth and expansion.
Yeah, no, it's good. Good answer there. Yeah.
How can you tell when you're ready to grow or expand your business? Well, I suppose to grow your business, really. Not to expand it.
And it's an interesting question, isn't it, Tracy? Because once we start to understand how we can choose to redefine those two terms, either expansion or growth, because I can grow my business without expanding it. Wow, what about that? That's an amazing concept, isn't it? Anyway, so to answer the question, there are a number of sort of key points that I've identified in the sort of the 8 steps that I highlight in the growth journey of a business. I've likened to sort of human growth, if you like. So you have before you start your business, you have a concept of an idea. You have an idea, so let's call that conception, for the sake of another term. So you conceive an idea in our business, and then you start your business. So you give birth to your business, effectively, don't you? And once you've given birth to your business, you have a baby. So you have a baby business around you. And there are further steps, which, perhaps that's a conversation for another day. But how do you move on through those steps, really, Tracy? So, from a pre-startup, if you like, I've got a good idea, exactly the same as my own journey. You're tired of working for somebody else. You want to have control of your life, of your diary. You want, as I say, you want to invest in your own holidays, not pay for somebody else's.
Yeah.
And typical problems, that exist there is people don't know where to start. They're drawn to what they see others have. They're drawn to successful business people and thinking, do you know what? I'd love to be like that. But how do you do that? So the first sort of mind step I suggest is to come to terms with the fact that every action and decision must be by design and purpose. And I'm happy to talk about these in a little bit more detail, but I suspect we probably won't have time today. But that's the first step. When you're moving from this sort of concept of an idea to giving birth to starting your business, you have to come to terms with the concept that every action and decision must be by design and purpose. The second one, when you've got your startup business, lots of other things happening. You've got your logo, you've got your website, you've got your social media, you're going to networking events, you've got a startup, perhaps you've got a startup loan or grant coming around. A lot of those around at the moment. But again, you've got lots of people around you trying to give you advice. That's always a good one.
Yeah.
And one of the things that often happens in a startup business, they don't actually have any customers, which is an interesting concept.
Yeah.
But it's true, or they have very few. Perhaps they don't really have a vision for where they're going or how they serve or how they show up. Perhaps they don't have a networking strategy. That's always a good one for startup businesses. And again, for me, the mind step trigger to move again from that to the next step, which is to baby business, is just agreeing that you're going to take ownership of failure. Yeah. Because one of the biggest challenges that exists in new businesses as they're beginning their journey is that fear of failure.
Definitely.
So they try and do lots of different things just in the hope that something happens where they don't fail. So for me, I've noted that one of those key steps is just taking ownership that failure is going to happen.
And what do you mean by taking ownership? Just be aware it happens. You've got to accept that it happens. Exactly.
Yes, and I'm sure it's the same for yourselves, that you will hear people saying, well, this is a journey. I've got to experience this journey. I've got to, I expect successes and I expect failures, and these things are going to happen. It's just life. But accepting that and owning it is a different thing, because that fear of failure is very real for so many people. So that's another one of those mindset steps. And these mindset steps
Not easy to say.
They compound.
Yeah.
So you can't really skip them. If you're going to grow your business from baby through adolescent to teenage to mature to adult, you've got to go through these mindset changes.
Yeah. And are there any, if you're looking to grow or expand, should we say grow, what are there any sort of resources that you think are quite vital to a business? What should you have in place from a resource point of view, do you think, to be able to do that? Is it a bit too generic? That is a bit too something you could, from your experience, is there something you could advise on that? What?
The answer is going to be yes.
Right.
But I was just playing around in my mind whether it's worth sharing these four. I've got four real pillars that I've learned for myself. And I'll be honest, today, I learned the hard way.
Yeah.
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 The reality is that there are people like us around where we can help and support people. So yes, people have to go through their own experiences, but they don't have to wait to go through them.
Yeah.
Because they can learn from other people like ourselves. So I have four pillars really, as well as these lots of different models, because I find these sort of models simple for people to align themselves with and then understand.
Yeah.
So I hope that we've clarified the difference between growth and expansion already today. But these four pillars really underpin the whole journey. And again, I suspect it's a further conversation, but the first one is you must have control of your diary.
Right.
Okay. And by control, I mean that when a prospect or a customer rings you, your first place is not to see how quickly you can put them in your diary. So that's not what that is.
Right. Right.
And again, so that's a real pillar. And again, it's one of these mindset changes. So I've noticed that taking ownership of your diary and controlling your diary is one of the mindset steps from having a teenage business to an adolescent business to having a teenage business.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's one of the first pillars, is having control of your diary.
Yeah.
The second one is understanding your numbers. You must understand what your numbers are in terms of, where money is coming in and going out and all that sort of thing. So you must understand your numbers. Third one is that you must be prepared at all times to constantly and consistently deliver on your values and beliefs without exception. Now that statement throws into stark focus many other considerations, as do some of the others. But that's one of those key 4 pillars, if you like.
Right.
Okay. So control of your diary, understand your numbers, and you must be prepared at all times to consistently deliver on your values and beliefs without exception.
Yeah.
So that brings into question the type of customers that we have around us.
Right.
Anyway, and then the final one is that you've got some help, and the best help that you can afford. One of the things that one of my customers said to me most recently is we've taken him from 100,000 to 1 million in a couple of years. One of the things he said to me was that whilst when we started the journey, investing in me was quite a significant part of their budget.
Mm-hmm.
It's actually the cheapest thing they have now.
Right.
Because people like me, we don't work on percentages. We have a fee. That's what the fee is to work with me as a coach and mentor. And that fee is fixed. Just because you increase your turnover by tenfold doesn't mean my fee increases by tenfold.
Yeah.
So I always say to people, get help and get the best help you can afford.
Right.
Because that's the help that will help you get to where you want to be. Anyway, so those are the 4 pillars, basically.
Right. Makes sense. Makes sense.
Do you see any common mistakes that people make when they're looking to grow their business?
Yes, the most common mistake is trying to run before you can walk. And what I mean by that is using this whole, let's be a baby, is we have the trappings of a business owner around us, but no real vision about why we're doing what we do. Again, one of my other principles of business, if you like, in my 7 principles, Jarvis principles, is the responsibility of a business. And that is to have a meaningful vision and be profitable in achieving it, whilst delivering on sustainability, ethicality, and great customer service. So there's full there, but the essence really is to have a clear and valuable vision, and then be profitable in delivering it. So for me, Tracy, they have the trappings of a business: website, social media, badge, business cards, all the trappings of a business, a great elevator pitch when you go networking, whatever it is. But the substance of why they're doing what they're doing and their vision for how they show up and what they deliver is perhaps not as clear as it should be. One of the key triggers for people wanting to start a business, or even the concept of business, is that they want to have what they see other people have.
Yeah.
And what they see other people have is the trappings of being a business owner.
And everybody's idea of success is different, isn't it? I mean, success to some people is to have £1 million in the bank, and others it's just to pay the bills, go on a nice holiday once a year, isn't it? There's different levels of success within your business.
For me, therein lies a very important point, and you're absolutely right in that success is different for everybody. But with a growth mindset, we're growing to whatever success looks like for us. We're not following the traditional expansionist model of more, because that's only going to somebody else's destination. You might as well just go and have a job if you're going to do that. And in fact, most people end up with a job in their business. The Malcolm Gladwell book, The E-Myth, great story, great example of that journey that people go on or can go on unless they see choice.
Interesting.
Very interesting. Some really good points there and some good advice.
Yes, thank you for that. It was some really good stuff there. Yeah. I'm sure people will get lots of value from that, actually. It certainly cleared up in my mind the difference between growth and expansion. I had it in my head, I had a rough idea, but now you've sort of clarified it for me more. I can see now why it does make sense. I wasn't quite sure when I asked the original question about the numbersy type thing, or you know what I mean? But now you've...
There's definitely a difference,
isn't
there?
Yeah.
Now, if people want to get in touch with you, Mark, what's the best way that they can do that?
Thank you, Tracy. You can find me on LinkedIn. Just go look for Mark Jarvis on LinkedIn. You'll find me there. You can find me on my website, mark-jarvis.co.uk. I'm sure you'll very kindly put the links in the call notes, so you can just go click on there. I have an online diary if somebody wants to just book a quick call with me. I have an online diary which people can just pop themselves into for a quick chat, just to see if there's something that I can share with them that might help them.
Mm-hmm. I'm sure you can. You have lots of valuable
lots of skills and knowledge and experience. Yeah, which is always. And the nice thing is, I think from talking to people like you, you've done it. You've walked the walk. I think there's quite a lot of people who, shall we say, talk the talk, but you've done it, which makes a big difference, I think, to people being able to pass on valuable information.
And before you go, we know that
yes,
you are a prolific networker, and we just wondered if you got a tip to share with our visitors, not our visitors, our
guests, listeners.
Tip to share with our listeners today.
You wouldn't believe we'd done this before, would you, Mark? Do you like?
I think I've still got COVID head.
Yes, absolutely. And what I'd like to share with you, and for our listeners, I was you guys very kindly asked me the question in advance, so I had time to think about it. And again, I love just having creating models and examples of journeys and experiences and processes that people can align themselves to. And I'd like to share my 5 steps for networking and 5 steps for networking assessment. Because if we're going to apply a strategy or a philosophy of growth, that means that wherever we are now might not be where we need to be next.
Yep.
So networking is a great example of this. And networking is such a powerful thing, but it's important that we understand that networking is about helping us to get to where we want to be next. So I'd like to share these 5 tips, if you like, with you. And when I'm teaching people about understanding the value in networking groups, you need to understand whether those people can engage with you and they can buy from you. And the second one is, can they introduce you to other people? The third one is, will they? Mm-hmm. Okay. So the first one is, can they buy? Second one is, can they introduce? The third one is, will they? Because whether they can buy or they can introduce it, if they won't. The fourth one is, do they have reach into my market? Okay. 4th level of assessment. The 5th one, and arguably probably the most important, subject to the third one, will they, is, are they credible in their own target market? Okay. So do they have reach into my market? Great. They can introduce me and they can do all that sort of thing. Great. That's all about networking. But are they credible in their own target market is another question which opens up lots and lots of other.
Yeah.
But it's a way for us to measure the effectiveness of our networking as we as a business grow, not just expand, but grow. But also think about where we choose to be, because we are the sum of the people we surround ourselves with.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. That's some good tips there. Yeah. Thank you for that. Interesting.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Mark, for joining us today. It's been lovely chatting with you. And
really enjoyed the conversation. Thank you.
My absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for inviting me, Tracy and Ian. It's been a real pleasure to share with you today.
Okay. You take care then, Mark.
Take care. Thanks again,
Bye.
Mark. Thank you.
Thank you.
We're almost at the end of this week's show, but we'd really like to invite you to come along to one of our in-business online networking events. The link to book will be in the show notes.
Thanks so much for joining us this week on In Business Talks to Friday Fix. We hope you've enjoyed it, and if you have, tell a friend about the show. We'd really appreciate it. Oh, and please follow or subscribe so you never miss an episode again.
Until next time, this is Tracy and Ian, and together
we are in business.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.